Alright, this is question number 4 for the test correction guide. Remember to be showing as much work as possible so you can get as many points back on your test as possible. So for number 4, we want to know the probability of landing on a number less than 2. So if you look at this spinner, we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. So how many numbers are less than 2? Well, the only one that's less than 2 is 1. So out of the 4 total outcomes, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, there's only one possibility of landing on a number less than 2. So your answer here is just 1/4. You could also write it as 25%, because those are similar. Those are the same number. Now, number 5. Brittany has a bag of marbles, and there are 4 colors: red, blue, green, and yellow. Knowing the probability of drawing these 3 colors, we want to find out what's left to be able to get that yellow marble. So there are 2 ways that we can do this. What I originally taught you before is finding a common denominator for these numbers. You can find it out of 35. So, because 7 times 5 is 35, so each of these numbers would be out of 35. Now, you multiply this by 7, this denominator, so that means you also need to multiply the numerator by 7. So we would end up having 14 over 35. Then this one, you would multiply by 5 to get to 35, so then you have to multiply the top by 5. So you'd get 5 over 35. And this one you'd also multiply by 5. So you'd get 15 over 35. If you add them up, then you'd get 34 over 35. So all that's left then is to find the remaining part of 35. So we know that 34 over 35 is what's left, and we need to get to 35 over 35. So if you just subtract 35 minus 34, you'd get 1 over 35, and that would be your answer, 1 over 35. Now, I noticed that a lot of people were struggling with finding this common denominator, so I wanted to show you one other way that would be a little bit easier to find this. So if you have a calculator, what you can do is change these numbers to decimals and then find the remaining part of, to figure out, and your answer would just be in a decimal this time. So if you did 2 divided by 5, 1 divided by 7, and 3 divided by 7, you would get decimals here instead. So I'll quickly do those on a calculator. You get 0.4 with 2 divided by 5. If you do 1 divided by 7, you get about 0.14. And if you do 3 divided by 7, you get 0.43. Well, your goal is to get to a total of 1. So if you add these up and subtract from 1, that's what's going to be left over. So 0.4 plus 0.14 plus 0.43 is going to give you plus 0.14 plus 0.4, 0.97. Well, we want to get to 1. So if we just do 1 minus 0.97, we're going to get 0.03. And if you were to do 1 divided by 35, you would end up getting the same answer right there. So either of these would work. You could say about 0.03, or you could say 1/35. Either one would work. So both of these are correct. It's just which method you like better. If you like working with fractions, like here, or you like working with decimals. Either one of those would be fine. So 0.03 or 1/35. I'll write them bigger here so you can see them. 0.03 or 1/35. Alright, question 6. A lot of people got a little confused with this one because they were trying to multiply by the number of coins rather than the number of outcomes. So you don't actually need to make a tree diagram unless you want to. What you really want to worry about is the number of total outcomes, and that's what you're working with. So if you have 4 coins, we need to figure out the total number of outcomes for each coin. So coin 1, there's just heads or tails, so there's 2 outcomes. Coin 2, 2 outcomes. Coin 3 and coin 4 are the same. You get the pattern. So now that we know the total number of outcomes for each one, we're then just simply multiplying these outcomes. That should sound familiar because we've done this multiple times for different types of probabilities. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So there are a total of 16 outcomes. Then we want to know the probability of getting tails with all 4 coins. So if you were to make a tree diagram, that simply is just one outcome that would happen out of all of those 16. Getting tails for all 4 times can only happen one time. So the probability is simply just 1 out of the total number of outcomes. 1 out of 16.